was in mid-act with my AP when the door opened and my husband walked in.
I got to know about Reddit through some friends of mine who told me that this was a safe space to share your personal stories without any judgment. So here I am today to share something life-shattering that had happened to me recently. I have nobody to blame but myself for all the events that I would be mentioning below. Let me take a deep breath and tell you my story. My name is Samantha and I'm 47 years old. I have been married to David, who is 54 for the past 25 years. David had always been a loving and caring husband as long as I can remember. We had 3 kids who left home when they grew up, and now it's just the 2 of us living in our big old house. I had taken a break from my work to spend my time at home as my job was getting too toxic. David was into sales and made enough money for the both of us. He also had a business setup to come in handy when he retired. Our kids arranged a grand event for our 25th marriage anniversary. It was at one of our holiday homes where everybody near and dear had been invited. I could see a lot of familiar faces that had been in my life for as long as I could remember. As I was walking down greeting people, I heard someone comment that I was trying to be too young wearing that dress which did not suit someone of my age. I tried to see who it was, but it was too loud and crowded to make out who could have made such malicious comments. I decided to forget about it for now and enjoy the party. As the party progressed, I could not help but keep going back to those comments in my head. I suppressed my unease and focused on enjoying my time with my family. It was very rare for us to get together as all my kids stayed in different cities. It was 1 week since our wedding anniversary. I could still not shake those comments off my head. I was down in my spirits and not my usual self. David could sense that there was something wrong with me and asked if there was something he could do to make me feel better. I shared my concerns with David, who was furious about it. David, being the loving husband that he was, tried his best to cheer me up. He took me shopping so that I could divert my attention and stop thinking about any negative emotions that were ruining my happiness. He reminded me that I had always been a timeless beauty and nobody could take that away from me. He took me to a spa that could help me release the tension and calm my mind. I smiled at the effort that he put in, and I knew that I was lucky to have him as my husband. Even after a few weeks, I couldn't let go of those comments that kept haunting me. I shared my concerns with David and asked him to be very honest and tell me if I looked bad. David looked at me and said that I looked perfect, and I should not let these comments hit my confidence. I told him that it was difficult for me to move on from these comments and that I should do something about it. David told me that he was always there for me, and if there was something he could do, that I was always welcome to go up to him and talk to him about it. I started to Google about fitness and body shape and diet. I tried a diet for a few days, but I understood that it was not my cup of tea. I needed guidance and help to start my fitness journey. I told David that I would not be able to do this on my own, and I would need an expert. David said that he had something in mind, but wasn't sure if I would be up for that idea. He suggested that I check out a few gyms with personal trainers that not only focused on exercise, but also on diet, and would guide me to improve my health. He said that he knew my aversion towards going to the gym, but I could try it for a few weeks and see if it helps. At this point, I was willing to do anything to get out of this depressed state that I was in. I started scouting a few gyms and shortlisted a few places to visit and talk to the trainers. I knew exactly what I had in mind and what I was expecting my trainer to guide me with. After going over a few gyms, I finally shortlisted a gym. I came home all excited and broke the news to David that I finally found a trainer that I felt could help me in my journey. David was very excited to see my determination and motivation to hit the gym. The next day I went to the gym and met my personal trainer. His name was Tony. He was tall, handsome, young, and obviously ripped. I could see that he had a lot of admirers in the entire gym. The girls would drool over his body and the boys tried hard to have a boy like him. He was quite popular and was aware of it. He told me that he would start off with light exercises and basics to begin with, and as we progressed we could move to something on an intermediate level. I was happy that he had a plan in mind. As I was leaving, he handed me a diet chart that I had to follow to make myself fitter and healthier. I was very happy with my first gym session and was excited to tell David all about it. I went home and stuck the diet chart to my fridge to make sure that I followed it religiously. When David came home, I was all excited and started blabbering about my experience at the gym without taking a breath. He smiled and said that he was happy to see me happy. It has been a week since I started going to the gym. David told me that he could see positive changes in my body. I was very happy to receive compliments from David, and I myself felt very good in my own skin. I was feeling confident and had this unknown drive that I could look good in anything that I wear. My gym sessions had now moved from 45 minutes to a full 1 hour. I was able to do a lot of things that were difficult in the beginning. My bond with Tony grew stronger as days passed. One day, Tony was teaching me a new exercise. That's when one of his fingers brushed my thighs. It sent shivers down my spine, and I felt an electrifying feeling that I could not shake off. He looked at me and smiled sheepishly at his innocent mistake. We both laughed about it and let it go. I did not make it into a big issue and decided not to tell David about this. I knew David wouldn't mind this, but somewhere it didn't feel right to tell David. The next day, I entered the gym as usual and saw Tony waiting for me. He told me that we would be doing a new exercise today and took me to a different area of the gym. As he was showing me the correct posture for the exercise, I could feel his hand on my buttock. I did not know if it was intentional or he was just trying to correct my posture. I was enjoying myself. I am not going to lie and wanted it to rest there for some time. I asked Tony if this was the right posture, to which he said that he would have to hold me to make sure I don't sprain myself. He was the expert here and would be the one deciding. I agreed to it and stood straight. He stood behind me a little too close for my comfort. I could feel his breath on my neck. He held my hand and made me hold the bar in front of me. He asked me to take a step and bend my thigh. I did that, but he said that my thigh was not aligned. He took his hand and held my thigh to align it correctly. His touch was doing something to me. As he was still holding my thigh, he placed his other hand on my buttock. I stopped breathing for a second. I could not understand if he was still on the same page, focusing on the exercise. I tried to look at Tony's face to see what was going on in his head, but when I turned, I realized that his face was inches away from mine. I could feel his breath on my lips, and I forgot what I wanted to do. He gave me a smirk and I pecked my lips. He then quickly stood straight and said that he was sorry. He said he shouldn't have done this, but he got carried away. He looked around and made sure that nobody saw what happened and left. I stood there all alone trying to process what just happened. That was something I wasn't expecting, but surprisingly, it didn't make me angry. I knew that the normal reaction to this would have been me fuming with anger and complaining about Tony, but I didn't. It has been 4 days now since our little peck. I decided against telling David about all this happening at the gym. I wanted to figure this out on my own. It had been 4 awkward days with Tony at the gym. I decided that both Tony and I had to sit together and address this. We can't go on feeling awkward around each other as we had to work together. I asked Tony if we could have a little talk at a nearby cafe after my session. He agreed to it and said he would meet me there 30 minutes after I left, during his break. I waited for him at the cafe, and when he arrived, he had a guilty look on his face. I got straight to the point and told him that he doesn't need to feel awkward or guilty around me. I mean, he was young, so it was natural for him to get carried away. It was not his fault, and that he could stop avoiding my gaze. I told him to forget about it, and let's just get back to being the way we were. He said that he was thankful to me for not complaining about him and being understanding. I told him it was all good, and we should just bury this in the past. After I sorted things with Tony, I felt pretty good about it and thought that things will get normal going forward. We had a normal week after my conversation with Tony. Things got a little out of hand at times when Tony's hands would be at places where they were not supposed to be. I tried to act as oblivious as possible to Tony's advances towards me. I assured myself that it was just a crush which would soon be over. I decided against telling David about this so that he had one less thing to worry about. I had confidence that I could deal with it myself. One evening, as David and I were having dinner, David told me that he was a little concerned about my gym sessions. My heart sank, and I thought that probably David had come to know about Tony. He told me that I was taking a long time in my workout sessions, which was not required for my age. He asked me not to stress myself out and do only the amount of workout I was comfortable with. He also told me that the gym I go to was pretty far from our house. I could probably switch to a gym which was much closer to where we lived to avoid long travel times. I instantly became defensive and answered that I loved my gym and would not want to change it. I was happy with the progress I was making and did not want to hamper it by changing the gym. David was taken aback by my defensiveness and said that he was just suggesting so that I can save some time, but he did mention that he understands my point completely and would let me make a decision on my own. I was feeling bad about lashing out at David for no reason. It has been 3 months since I started my gym sessions. I could see a lot of change in my mind and body. At the same time, I could not ignore the chemistry between me and Tony. Things had been escalating pretty quickly between me and Tony. There was undeniable chemistry between us. We would sneak kisses in between our workout sessions, and if we were lucky, we could even find an empty bathroom to make out. I felt so guilty for cheating on David that I barely spoke to him and tried to avoid spending time with him because I was scared that I might blurt something out which would destroy my marriage. David told me that my gym was keeping me too busy even to spend some time with him. I gave him a reassuring smile and said that I would try to make myself more available for him. I knew that I had to be very careful and not be caught by David. I need to make sure that he is happy so that I can continue my fairy tale romance with Tony. I did not feel any butterflies or sparks when David touched me or came close to me. I don't know if it was because I was too familiar with his touch or that I was enjoying Tony's touch way too much. As it was winter, David suggested that I start working out at home. I gave him very vague excuses, telling that we do not have all the necessary equipment, and I would not be that motivated at home to work out. David told me that equipment was not an issue, and that he could arrange everything that I wanted in the spare room. I could convert that room into a gym. I still looked very dissatisfied by his suggestions, so he told me that, why don't I check with my trainer if he could give private sessions at home? That was enough to bring an instant smile to my face. I told him that I would check with him and get back to David on this. David was pleased that at least I would consider his request and make an effort to make it work. After 2 days, I told him that Tony had agreed to take private gym sessions at home. I could not make it too obvious that Tony would readily agree to it. It was my first day of working out from home. I introduced David and Tony. I noticed David a little taken aback by the way Tony looked. After Tony left that day, he asked me what I thought about Tony. I was caught off guard and gave him a vague answer that he's a good guy and a nice trainer. I could feel the guilt rising higher that I might get caught. David told me that he has an upcoming deal for the client that was very important. He would be away most mornings working at this office. He said that he's relieved that Tony would be keeping me company, at least for a few hours, when he was away. The next day, Tony arrived as usual at 10 a.m. for our workout session. He noticed that David wasn't around and gave me a wicked smile. I knew what was going on in this head. As we started warming up, I noticed that Tony kept staring at me with a constant smile plastered on his face. I tried to ignore that and focused on my warm-up. As soon as I bent down, Tony came and stood behind me. He had both his hands on my buttocks and told me that I had the wrong posture. He also told me that he liked that I had a sexy figure. I could not help but blush at what he said. He knew that I was trying so hard to stop myself. He walked towards me and winked. We started kissing each other passionately and making out. Tony was fast enough to grab me and start undressing me when we both fell beside each other and started laughing. As I was catching my breath, I saw Tony sit on my body and start kissing me passionately. I could see that my body had a different mind of its own and started acting on its own accord and reciprocated the kiss. Tony's hands moved very swiftly and started taking off my pants. I got goosebumps and butterflies in my stomach. Just like that, we started making out on the hard floor. After about 20 minutes, we stopped because we were both tired and panting. I could see a sense of satisfaction on Tony's face, as if he knew that I had been resisting him for quite some time. There were still 30 minutes left for our gym session. Tony asked me naughtily if I wanted to go for another round. I could not help but laugh at his request. But deep down, I knew that David might be back from office anytime soon, and it was better to stop for today. I told Tony that I loved him and that we could continue where we started tomorrow. He agreed to it, smiled at me, and left. David came home in the afternoon after he finished his work. I had been thinking about everything that had happened today with Tony. I could not deny the fact that I enjoyed those moments with Tony. As I looked at David, there was an undeniable amount of guilt that I was feeling in my gut. He kept telling me about his work, but my mind was racing and I could not focus on anything that he was saying. He saw me spaced out and said that he did not want to bore me with his boring talks. I smiled at him but could not meet his eyes. He asked me how my workout was and I jumped. I quickly answered that everything was normal just like every other day. But deep down, I knew I was lying to him. The truth was my workouts had become a way for me to escape and spend more time with Tony, and the guilt of betraying David was eating away at me. The problem I had with David was not that I never loved him. I did, but the sex was meh. I never actually enjoyed having sex with David. Tony, on the other hand, was young, energetic, and to top it all, he also had a sexy body. I knew what I was doing right now was wrong on so many levels, but I felt that I deserved a good sex life. I know that I was being too selfish, but you gotta be selfish at times. I couldn't deny the fact that Tony fulfilled my desires in ways David never could. Despite the guilt, I couldn't ignore the exhilarating feeling of being desired and satisfied in ways I had always longed for. I decided to give my marriage one last chance tonight before I make my final decision. Maybe it was more to satisfy my guilt than it had to do with David or saving the marriage, now that I look back. At night, I wore the sexiest lingerie that I owned and made a romantic environment in our bedroom. I lit a few scented candles and placed them across her room. I got the bubble bath ready in our bathtub and played romantic music. I had asked David to get some chocolate so that I could prepare all this in the meantime. When David got home and came into our bedroom, he saw that the lights were off and the room was lit only by candles. I could see that expression on his face that melted my heart. It was so pure and full of love for me. He walked inside and took off the quilt to uncover me under it in my most sexy lingerie. He was amused by this surprise. We started kissing each other. I undressed him, and we made love to each other. After the lovemaking, David was tired and dozed off. I was lying there in bed, unable to sleep. Subconsciously, I was comparing what I felt with Tony and what I felt with David. There was an immense difference between how they both made me feel. With David, it all happened too quickly, and before I could even start enjoying it, it was over. But with Tony, it felt out of the world. He knew exactly what to do to pleasure me. After a lot of tossing and turning, I finally went to bed, still feeling unsatisfied and longing for the intense connection I had with Tony. The lingering thoughts of our passionate encounters kept me awake, leaving me yearning for more fulfillment in my current relationship with David. The next day, David told me that he would be spending most of his time at home and would only go out if necessary. I gave him the best smile I could to make him know that I was happy to have him at home and spend more time with him. There was no way I could let him know what was going on behind his back between me and Tony. When Tony came, he wasn't expecting David to be at home. I could see the unease in Tony's body language. I was warming up when I saw David walk up to Tony and talk to him. David was asking Tony about my progress. I was all tensed up about what they were talking about. Tony came back after 5 minutes and gave me a reassuring nod to calm down. I breathed a sigh of relief that David was still unaware of my affair with Tony. Tony and I enjoyed working out from home as we had no need to worry about someone walking in between or waiting for the bathrooms to be vacant to make out. Whenever David was out, we had lots of chances and lots of rooms to make out in. We could choose any room that we wished and make out till our heart's content. After a few days, David had to leave for an important meeting with the client very early in the morning. David left at 6 in the morning to make sure that he made it on time. As he left, he kissed me goodbye and said that he would be back by around 2 p.m. because the client that he was dealing with was very fussy and would take time to sign the contract. I wished him good luck and told him to call me once he was done so that we could go out in the evening to celebrate if he got the deal. He agreed to it and left. I knew that I wanted him to call me so that I knew exactly when he would be coming. I decided to call Tony and let him know about this. I made my preparations for my time with Tony and waited for him. The doorbell rang and I knew that it was Tony. I rushed and opened the door wearing something I knew he would like on me. His gaze was giving me butterflies in my stomach. I turned around to look at him and acted as if he was not affecting me at all. We were standing so close to each other that there was hardly any space between our bodies. Tony then placed one of his hands on my stomach and with the other. He turned my face towards his and started kissing me. He was such a good kisser that I could not resist myself and gave in. We continued kissing each other and slowly started undressing each other. Our hands were touching each other everywhere. Tony made me sit on one of the equipment and we started making love to each other right in the middle of the gym. Tony was very good and also fast at what he was doing. I was having the best sex of my life and completely forgot about David and my marriage. I could see a stark difference between last night's sex with David, which was not as great as just the foreplay with Tony. After a while, we both were tired and panting and decided to take a break. We were still on one of the equipment and laughed looking at each other because we both knew we had been craving for each other's body. It was not even noon and I knew that David wouldn't be back till 2 p.m. We still had 4 hours that we could utilize. I wanted to play hard to get, so I told Tony to put on his clothes. I took my clothes and started wearing them. I then walked towards the dining table and put some juice in 2 glasses for the both of us. I asked him to have some juice and I'll be right back. I went to my room and quickly started scanning through my lingerie to put on something sexy. I ran into the bathroom and started filling the bathtub with water and threw in a bath bomb. I took out the wine in 2 glasses and placed them beside the bathtub. I made sure everything was ready. I wore the lingerie and covered myself with a gown. I walked downstairs and saw Tony sitting at the table drinking the juice. I sat across from him and drank my juice. I spilled some juice on myself and made it look like an accident. I asked Tony if he could help me get it off my clothes. He started walking towards me knowing what this meant. He walked behind me to the bedroom. I made him follow me to the bathroom and slowly took off my gown. He could see that the bathtub was ready. There were wine glasses next to it. He came towards me and whispered in my ear that he loved the entire setup. I could not help but blush at his compliment. He started touching me at places that felt right. I loved how his touch made me feel. He started pressing my body towards his and slowly turned me around. We started kissing each other and walked towards the bathtub. He very swiftly pulled off my lingerie and pushed me into the bathtub. He followed me and we started making out, covering each other in foam. We took a break to enjoy the wine. Tony told me that he knew the moment I walked into the gym that we would be having a steamy session very soon. He said that he already sensed that I have been starving for sex for a very long time, which was not completely false. My sex life with David had been non-existent for such a long time that I could not remember when was the last time we had passionate sex. Tony was someone who brought my sensual and wild sex drive alive. After having sex with Tony, I could remember how enjoyable sex actually was. After some more making out in the bathtub, we decided to take a shower together. We had some more sex in the shower. After the shower, I gave Tony one of David's shorts and asked him to wait for me on the bed. It was still 12 p.m. and there were 2 hours more for David to come home. I got greedy and thought that we could do one more round before I let Tony go for today. When David would be back at home, I knew that it would be difficult for me to be alone with Tony again like this for an undetermined amount of time. So today was the only day where we could capitalize and make the most of it. I put on another pair of my lingerie, which barely covered anything, and walked towards the bed where Tony was lying down. He looked at me in awe and could not stop smiling. I liked that even at my age, I had it in me to attract such a young and hot guy. I came onto the bed, pushed him, and started kissing him. Within minutes, we were naked and were making out again. We were so into each other that it took us a while to realize that something fell, which made a huge noise. I turned my head to see where the noise came from and saw David standing at the entrance of our bedroom with flowers in his hands and a bottle of champagne which was now shattered on the floor. I froze for I don't know how long, as I could not understand how David could be here at this time. I did not even realize the state I was in. Tony tried to push me away, and that's when I came back to reality. I quickly got off Tony and started frantically searching for my clothes. Tony quickly grabbed the shorts and was about to wear them when David said that it was his shorts. Tony threw the shorts on the floor and tried to cover himself with his hands. I found the lingerie I was wearing but decided to cover myself with the quilt, as that would be more decent. Tony covered himself with his hands and started running outside. He probably grabbed his clothes and left. David was staring at me in disbelief, unable to even speak. I started blabbering that I was sorry and it was a mistake and that it would never happen again. He just had to trust me. It was Tony who manipulated me to have sex with him. I told David that I loved him and our marriage and kids was what mattered to me the most in this world. David did not utter even a single word from his mouth, but I could see in his eyes that he was disgusted by what I had done. He went to his office and locked himself. I dressed myself and went to check if Tony had left. After making sure that there was no sign of Tony, I went to the office room and started knocking. I asked David if he could please open the door and let me explain. There was no response from David whatsoever. I started thinking about how to approach the situation so as to cause as little damage to my marriage as possible. Should I tell him that this was the first time this happened and it was all a mistake? As I was thinking, I realized that the bathroom is still a mess with everything that we did before David arrived. I thought of salvaging the situation by cleaning the bathroom before David could witness something much crueler. I ran to the bathroom and started draining the bathtub. I started cleaning the shower when I remembered the wine bottle and the wine glasses. Just as I was about to pick them up, I saw David enter the bedroom and look at the condition of the bathroom. He instantly understood what would have gone down in the bathroom. I know that after all this, there was no saving myself from David. I looked at David and panicked. He had blood in his eyes. This was the first time I saw David so angry that I was shivering with fear. He just kept staring at me without uttering a single word. It made me nervous and I started blurting out that it was Tony who forced me to have sex with him. David screamed that what he saw did not look forceful. He told me that it looked like I was enjoying myself. I too lost my cool and yelled at him. I told him that yes, I was enjoying myself. Tony was able to satisfy me in a way that he was unable to. It was not my fault that I had been deprived of sex all these years that I had been with him. I could see the anger and hurt in David's eyes as my words sank in. He was taken aback by my confession and the harsh truth that I had just revealed. As the argument escalated, emotions ran high and tensions flared. I realized that our relationship had reached a breaking point, with underlying issues of intimacy and satisfaction coming to the surface. I started blaming him for everything that had been missing in my life. He told me that he did everything that he could to make me happy. He even was working at this age to make sure that we had a luxurious life. But deep down, I knew that it wasn't just about material possessions or external factors. It was about the emotional connection that had slowly eroded over time. Our communication had become strained, and we had stopped truly understanding each other's needs and desires. The absence of intimacy and satisfaction had led to all the trouble, and that was something that David had a hard time understating. I did not need his money. All I needed was him to satisfy me. I knew that all this talk hurt his ego, and it was getting very difficult for him to accept that he was not that great in bed. David started slamming everything in our bedroom. He was scaring me, so I stopped yelling at him. I thought that I had done enough to put my point across. He left the room after breaking everything he possibly could. It has been 2 days since David caught me cheating on him with Tony. He hasn't spoken to me ever since our argument, and I have no idea how to get him to talk to me. I tried to reach Tony, but he isn't picking up my calls either. Tony had been missing even from the gym, so I knew that I could not go to him. I don't know if after all this I would be able to save my relationship with David. I am now coming to my senses. I don't know what I should do and how I should behave in such a situation. David was my only hope to survive right now. If we get divorced, I would have to face public shame, and also my kids whom I love dearly would never even want to look at my face. I am lost, and the only thing I can do right now is plead to David to give me another chance to salvage the marriage, and not to mention the affair to the kids. If anyone has ever been in the same situation, please give me some ideas on how I can get myself out of this mess. Thank you for reading and not judging me. Sometimes when you read about men that were cheated on by their partners, you can't help but ask, how does he feel? What did he do? I just know that he is going to end that marriage and find someone better. Most times the men do deserve someone better, but there's just one problem. Can they fully recover from being cheated on? Will they ever be able to trust anyone again? I recently discovered that my wife of 6 years had been cheating on me for 3 years with a random guy she met at our wedding, and I honestly don't know how I feel or what to do. I am stuck between peacefully filing for a divorce and being on the 9 p.m. news for something I might do. As I write this, I am at a wedding, sitting on the bed while a bag of clothes is placed in front of me. I honestly can't still grasp the situation or how I had been so blinded by the love I had for my war that I didn't notice sooner. I need to tell someone what happened, or else I might potentially lose my mind. My name is Greg Okoro, and I am a dark-skinned 42-year-old, 5'11" male with married to Clara Ade, a light-skinned 36-year-old 5'3" female. Clara and I met at the shopping mall. We both stood at the checkout line when a man came from nowhere and stood of Clara. Being annoyed at his behavior, Clara tapped on his back in order to get his attention before asking him to move to the back of the line because there were people who were there for her. Now, as I had stated before, Clara is 5'3", and this guy stood at least 6 FT tall and looked down at her before responding rudely that she should mind her business and allow him to pay for his groceries. Clara didn't stop, but again asked him to move to the back of the queue, and this really annoyed him because he soon threw his basket of groceries on the floor and was now looking at Clara, the way a lion looks at another lion who enters his territory. But Clara didn't budge, but I knew that if I didn't do anything, things would get out of hand. I ran out of my spot and rushed to where they stood, took Clara's hand and said, "Honey, let's go." They said that Mom is in the hospital, which is a lie, obviously, before dragging her to the counter where the cashier quickly checked out our things. Before leaving, I hurriedly apologized to the man before dragging a shocked Clara behind me. After we had left the mall, she seemed to snap out her shock and asked me who the hell I thought I was. I calmly explained that if I didn't intervene when I did, the guy would have done something to her, and I reminded her that we lived in a country where our safety is not guaranteed by the police. She seemed to calm down after this and thanked me. We exchanged contacts before I walked her to her car and watched her drive off before getting into mine. That singular encounter changed my life forever. Clara and I started texting, meeting for innocent lunch and dinner dates before I asked her to be my girlfriend. She accepted, and it was heaven on earth. I would always wake up to calls from her, surprise visits at house, home-cooked meals, more dates. But we never got too intimate. Clara came from a Catholic family, and they don't take kindly to such things. Her parents are Yoruba and also very traditional, so simple things like lying on the floor to greet them matter a lot. After dating for 3 years, I popped the question and she said yes. I was beyond happy because I have finally found my better half, my missing rib. Cheesy, I know. The wedding was beautiful, and finally it was time to go home and start the rest of our lives. We waited a year before we started trying for kids. The reason for this was because we both agreed that we wanted to have that period all to ourselves and build our careers before we can bring a child into the picture. On the second anniversary of our marriage, Clara surprised me with a positive pregnancy test result, and to say that I was happy was a big lie. I was more than happy, and why wouldn't I be? I was married to the perfect woman, and she was about to give me the perfect child. I always assumed we're happy. I worked hard as an accountant at Advise LLP, CPA firm at 6230 Wilshire BLVD Suite, Yale 192, Los Angeles, CA 9048, United States provide for our comfortable life at LA. I trusted Clara completely and never suspected that anything was wrong. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Now 5 years and 2 kids later, I start noticing some changes. Clara stopped sending me good morning texts. Yes, I know what you're thinking, but even after we got married, she still kept the habit of always sending me good morning texts whenever she woke up. She always got up before I did to take care of the kids and get breakfast ready, but always found time to send me the cutest texts that would leave me smiling and giggling to myself all day. It was always something short and cute, like, if you were a vegetable, you'd be a cucumber, or are you Netflix? Because I could watch you for hours. But all of a sudden, the messages stopped coming. When it first happened, I just brushed it off and assumed that she had a pretty hectic day and must have forgotten. But when 2 weeks had gone back without any good morning texts, I knew that Clara had changed. It was as though she had stopped caring about me and our marriage. The only time I would see her brighten up would be when she's with our kids, but whenever we would be alone, she would be so stiff and uptight with me that every conversation with her feel like a conversation between my boss and I. I thought I had done something wrong and even went as far as apologizing and treating her to a fancy dinner. But even after all that, she still remained the same. She had started keeping late nights, claiming she had to work overtime or meet with friends. She became so distant and cold that she started avoiding my affection and attention. I have never questioned my wife and her work. Neither have I ever imagined her of doing anything to hurt me, so I always went with her excuses. We had to get maid to help take care of the kids while we were at work, but I made sure to always coming back before they went to bed. I always assured them that their mother loved them because my eldest daughter kept asking why her mother was hardly at home and if they had done something to upset their mother. Hearing this from a 4-year-old girl broke my heart, so I told her that her mother just had a lot of work to do, and also reassured them that their mother loved them so much. Each time I tell Clara what the kids say, she promises to change, which she does, but only for a day or two. Now I am a very calm and quiet guy, but for some reason, I was slowly getting agitated by what was going on, but I never for once questioned my wife's faithfulness to me. I always blamed her work or something else for her behavior. I never stopped being a loving and devoted husband who secretly prayed that things go back to the way they were. If someone had told me what the following year would bring and how it would affect me, I would have cussed the person out. The following year started off different. Clara was back to normal and even better than before. She was always smiling and laughing each time I saw her. The good morning texts started coming again, and she even added some happy endings at the end of the day for me, and I couldn't believe how lucky I was. I was also happy to see her spend more time with the children, and she even started coming back from work early. It was truly amazing because at that moment I felt like nothing could ever go wrong with life. One thing that she also started doing the year was going to the gym at night with her friends from work. She went every Sunday and would return to the house some minutes past 8. But she was always in a cheerful mood when she returned, so I didn't question the odd hours. It suddenly changed from every Sunday to Saturdays and Sundays. I didn't mind because her attitude didn't change towards the kids and I, so I turned a blind eye to it. After 6 months of going to night gym, there was no visible change in her body. She was still the same and even added a few pounds. Not that I am complaining about that, though. One day, I jokingly told her that I would love to join her in her gym sessions, and she immediately tensed up and got all defensive. She said, and I quote, "You don't need to go to the gym with me. It's mostly just ladies working out and talking about their husbands." Upon saying this, it dawned on me that she had never told me the name of her gym or where it was located, so I asked her. She looked at me for some time before she said she needed to use the restroom. My fellow Redditors, the next time I asked about the name and location of the gym, she came prepared with even pictures of herself outside and inside the gym. The gym was Hybrid Gym, LA. After that, I left it alone, but I was still curious as to why she reacted the way she did the first time I asked her about it. It was our wedding anniversary, and I planned to surprise her. I wanted to pay some people to follow me to the gym holding a cake, a money bouquet, and money cake, as well as a saxophony player that was going to play her favorite song for her. I called her sister to help me plan the surprise as well, follow me there to capture the beautiful moment. Around 5 p.m., everyone was ready and we drove to the gym in my car. Luckily, there was no traffic that day, so we only spent 30 minutes on the road. When we got there, everyone got into place. My sister-in-law started recording on her phone. I held the money bouquet. My Love by Westlife was playing on the saxophone, while those carrying the money cakes were at the back. I couldn't wait to see her face. Upon entering the building, we were met with many shocked and surprised faces, but none of them belonged to Clara. Thinking she might have gone to the restroom, I approached the receptionist and asked her if my wife had arrived. She asked for my wife's name, but after checking her records, she informed me that nobody by that name had registered there. I was confused because my wife had been going there for months, or did I get the name wrong? I asked her sister to call her and ask her where she was, but specifically told her not to inform my wife of my presence. She left to make the phone call while I went back to the car with others. After 5 minutes, she came back with a strange look on her face, and when I asked her what happened, she told me that Clara had told her that she was at the Freehand LA, which was located at 416 W 8th St. Los Angeles, CA 914, United States. I just assumed that it was a work thing, or maybe her friends had lodged her to celebrate her anniversary with her. It's stupid, I know, but I always made excuses for her. I asked if she got the room number from Clara, to which she nodded, and we were off. Now, I am going to be frank with you guys. Nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what happened. In all my years of existence, I have never had the privilege of wishing that the earth would open up and swallow me, never to spit me back ever again. Thinking about it now makes me physically nauseous and stupid at the same time. How could I not see the signs? Why did I keep making up excuses for her? Why didn't I just confront her? No matter how many times I ask myself these questions, I never get a response. If I had done something earlier, maybe it won't hurt as much as it did now, or maybe I would have left before it was too late. I would still be sane and happy. But no, I chose to be the loving clown who trusted the enemy to take a bullet for me. When we got to the hotel, I told the receptionist about my plan to surprise Clara and even told her that we already knew the room number. She agreed not to call Clara's room and we went up. Again, like before, we got into position, phone recording, saxophone playing, money cakes, and money bouquet ready. I took a huge breath before knocking on the door. The door opened, and before me stood my wife in a towel with her hair wet. The moment she saw me, she froze, and I was about to speak when a voice spoke behind her. "If that's room service, ask them to get us new sheets. We got carried away and messed up this one," the voice said. I recognized that voice, but I couldn't place it. Clara still stood there, not saying a word to me or moving. Before I could say a word, someone stood behind her in nothing but shorts. The moment he saw me, his eyes grew wide and his mouth fell open. It was John. For some backstory, John was my stepbrother. Same father, different mother, but you would never know because we did everything together. The day I met Clara, I told him. The day she agreed to go out with me, I told him. The day she agreed to be my wife, he was there. He was my best man at my wedding, for crying out loud. I even complained to him when Clara was acting up and he told me she'd come around. He even had the nerve to suggest that he might be cheating on me with someone else, but I guess he was the someone else. The thing was, I loved John so much that I was ready to give a kidney and a lung if he wanted me to, and I always thought the feeling was mutual, but joke's on me. Haha. I stood there speechless. Clara's sister had been able to snap out of her shock and asked others to follow her down to the car while I still stood there. I looked down at the floor for what felt like an eternity before I opened my mouth. "How long?" They both kept quiet. "How long has this been going on?" I shouted, which caused them both to flinch. They had never seen or even heard me raise my voice, so the shouting caught them off guard. Clara opened her mouth, but no words came out. Then John spoke up. "A year after Amanda was born." My head shot up and I looked at them. "What?" I managed to mutter. Clara was going through some hard times. We met, had a couple drinks. One thing led to the other and we spent the night together. I wanted to stop, but before John could say another word, I punched him across the face. Clara tried to talk to me, but in a fit of rage, I slapped her right across her face. "What do you want to tell me, huh? You're sorry? Or that you were lonely? Or maybe I was never around? No, tell me the excuse you want to give for sleeping with my stepbrother for 3 years while you gave me hell at home for 2 years and some months. You'd come home with an attitude, refuse to spend time with the kids. Your kids hate and nag at every single thing I do, but what do? I still love you. I make excuses for you to your kids. I make excuses for you to myself. I even complain to him." I point to John, who's holding his jaw. "But what do I get?" As I said this, I could feel the tears leaving my eyes, but I couldn't be bothered to clean them. Before either of them could say another word, I went back to the car, dropped off my sister-in-law and others, drove home, packed my things as well as my children's clothes, and took them to stay with my godmother. I just told her to look after them and that I would be back to pick them in a few days, but on no account should she allow Clara to take them. I promised to explain everything to her when I got the chance to. After I dropped them off, I went back to my house, got the gun I secretly bought as a bachelor, and checked into a small hotel. This is my story so far. Clara has called and texted me countless times, but I haven't said Q word. It's been 3 days since this incident, and I haven't moved from the bed since then. I haven't eaten or drank anything. Neither have I gotten up to take a shower. My head is still fuzzy about everything. Most times I think to myself, what if Emeka was not truly my son? What if John was responsible for the pregnancy? Each time I get these thoughts, I shake it off with the response that I was there when Emeka came into this world, and that I'll always see and love him as my son. Update. It has always baffled me how someone could sleep peacefully after doing something so evil that the mere mention of it would cause chills. I'm still at the motel, and it's been 3 months since I got here, and a lot has happened since then. It's been a bumpy ride, and I honestly still can't say how I feel about the whole thing. For those of you who might be confused, or maybe this is your first time coming across my story, hi, my name is Greg, and I am in the middle of a messy situation. Now, for some context, I detailed what I was going through in my previous post, but I'll still do a quick recap. I had been married to the love of my life for 6 years, but recently find out that she had been cheating on me for 3 years, and you will never believe who she chose to sleep with. My stepbrother. I know it sounds hard to believe, and honestly, after all the while, I still find it hard to believe that was able to find myself in this kind of situation. This is the kind of stuff that you read about on the news or maybe watch on those YouTube channels, but here I am, actually going through it in reality. Now, my wife had been trying to reach me and my kids, but when she found out that she couldn't, she took a different approach. As I think about it now, I've just realized that she isn't the same woman I dated and fell in love with. Was she just hiding her true colors? Or were they always there and I was just too stupid to see them? Anyway, back to what she did that left a scar on my heart. I got a call from my dad one day asking me to come over. Now, my dad is Nigerian and grew up there before relocating to the United States of America, and, well, let's just say that we, my siblings and I, were brought up Nigerian style, and whenever we were summoned, it always meant one of us had done something and was going to be scolded at. After I got the call, I sat on the bed and thought long and hard as to what might have caused my father to summon me. No matter how hard I thought, I couldn't think of anything, so I just accepted that I would only know if I visit him. The next day, I got up early and got ready for my visit to my father. He lived it, so it took some time for me to get there, but when I eventually did, I remembered why I hardly visited. Everyone was smiling and welcomed me wholeheartedly while my dad just stood there. I walked up to him with my hand extended for a handshake. But that was not what I got. The moment I got close enough to him, he drew him closer to him, hugged me, let go of me, and then slapped me across the face. Yes, I know it sounds strange, but it happened so fast that I couldn't process anything. Why are you such a disappointment? It's hard enough that you didn't turn out like your siblings, but you also cheat on your wife? I was so stunned I couldn't react. I stood there, hand on my cheek, looking at my father, who was looking at me with a look on his face I had never seen before. He slapped me. My father had never raised his hands to hit us, so where was this coming from? What? I managed to blurt out after some seconds. He repeated his words, but this time he said it calmly, and after saying it, he sat down and looked at me, waiting for my response. Who said I cheated on her? I asked, while still looking at my father with my hand still on my cheek. My father took a deep breath, looked at me from my head down to my toes before speaking. Listen, marriage has its ups and downs, and even though you had never done things the right way, I never expected you to be one accused of cheating on his partner, he said while looking at me dead in the eyes. I finally let go of my cheek and tried to defend myself, but when I tried to mutter words, he asked me to leave. Yes, he asked me to leave his house and to add a cherry on top of the icing. He said that I had to call my wife, apologize to her, beg her to take me back, or I would be disowned by my family. I would be disowned. I would be disowned by my father for something I didn't do. The moment I reached my motel, I fell on my bed and started laughing. I laughed so much my tummy began to hurt, and before I knew it, I fell asleep. The next day, I decided to go and visit my kids at my mother's place. When I got there, they were so happy to see me, and as usual, asked when their mom was going to return from her trip. I had told them that she had traveled for a work trip, and since I had changed my children from their old school, I didn't have to worry about Clara going to look for them there. You see, my mom and my father had divorced and were living separately. They separated 2 years after Clara and I got married, but I never told Clara where she lives, and I'm thankful for that now. After spending time with my kids, I sat down with my mom and told her what happened between her husband and I. She was surprised that I wasn't given a listening ear and was threatened in such a way. Mom knew everything that had happened between Clara and I, so she was able to judge the situation fairly. She asked me to file for a divorce and fight for custody of my kid, but I reminded her that doing that would cause my father to get involved. And since he believes I'm the one at fault, he would hire the best lawyer money can afford and take my kids from me. I stayed till 7 p.m. before I went back to the motel. Once I got there, an idea popped up in my head and I called my sister-in-law to talk to her. We had been keeping in touch all this while she even told me that Clara had brought John home and fabricated a lie to their parents, which won them over. She also told me that Clara seemed different, but I told her that I didn't call her to talk about her sister and that I needed something from her. I told her what I needed and she agreed. The next day, I got the nerve to visit my house in Clara. When I got there, everything looked the same, but it felt different. I knocked on the door and Clara opened the door. She was shocked to see me, but she immediately removed the look of shock from her face and invited me in. I sat down and she offered me something to drink, but I declined. After what felt like hours, I cleared my throat and spoke up. "How are you, Clara?" Saying her name while looking at her sent tears to my eyes, but I had to bite my tongue to prevent myself from breaking down. "I'm fine. How have you been? You look pale. Have you been eating well?" She asked me with a hint of concern in her tone. I didn't respond immediately because what exactly was I to say? I was fine? Of course not, but I wasn't about to let her see that. "I'm all right, Clara. I've just been busy with work. Look, the reason I came back was because..." I stopped talking, looked her in the eye, then fell on my knees. "Please forgive me. I'm sorry for everything that happened. I'm sorry for not being a better husband, for not paying attention, for not loving you more, for failing as a husband. Clara, please forgive me." At this point, I was in tears. I was sobbing like a child while Clara sat there and looked at me helplessly. After a few minutes, she got up and knelt beside me. She wiped my tears and said that she had forgiven me, and that it was fine as long as I had realized my mistake. I had realized and asked her to let me back into her life. I also told her I had given them my blessings to be together, and she was so happy. She started doing this little dance that always made me smile. I decided to move back in with her, but as a housemate until I can find a place of my own. I also found out that they, John and Clara, were planning on getting married. John and I patched things up the following week, and honestly, everything was going so well. I brought the kids back and they were so excited to see their mom. Now I know you're going to ask me what has come over me or possibly call me the biggest simp of all time, but I don't care. Seeing Clara happy made me happy, and that was all that mattered. Everything was going great at home. Clara and John would go out and I would stay home to look after the kids. John and I quickly bonded again, and I was even made his best man. I still remember feeling like a girl who had been asked to dance. He told me about it. I helped with most of the planning and made sure everything went perfectly. Clara's parents have forgiven me for what I did to their daughter, but her sister wouldn't talk to me. She thinks I've lost my mind. What does she know? Love makes you do stupid things, and honestly, I wasn't even complaining. My father was pleased with my decision and even asked me to visit him anytime wanted. The wedding was held at Hollywood and Suites Hotel at El Segundo Boulevard Gardena, and we would have a big reception at their beautiful hall. Clara and John let me handle everything, and honestly, after doing all that for them, I felt so peaceful. I found myself wondering why I didn't do this sooner. I even found out that Clara was expecting. She told me first and made me swear not to tell John. I was so happy she trusted me enough to tell me about it. One day I saw Clara looking worried and I asked her what the problem was. "It's nothing serious, just pre-wedding jitters, I guess," she told me while looking at her nails. I took her hands, gave it a soft kiss, and assured her that she had nothing to worry about. I had taken care of everything to the very last detail, and all they had to do was to be there and be happy. She smiled, gave me a long hug, and thanked me. When she was about to pull away, we both realized that our faces were so close to each other. Without warning, she kissed me and, well, I kinda kissed her back. Now, before you hate me, remember that I still loved her, and I guess those feelings never died. She didn't pull away from the kiss, and when she did, she simply smiled and said, "Thank you," to which I smiled back and left the room. I felt so happy I almost jumped up like a child. Tomorrow was the wedding, so I had to sleep early. Life is not always beautiful, but when you have something to look forward to every day, you stop seeing the thorns and only focus on the roses. I had been so focused on the thorns that I forgot how the roses smelt, but not anymore. I was going to give life another chance, but first I had to be there for two important people in my life at the moment. Finally, the wedding day had arrived and Clara looked so stunning in her wedding dress. She wore a trumpet wedding dress with a long veil and a crown on her head, while John wore a three-piece slim fit suit with Oxford shoes. They both looked like something you'd read in a storybook, and I kid you not, I teared up when they both said their vows. The wedding ceremony was beautiful, and now it was time for the reception. After everyone had eaten and enjoyed themselves, I asked John to give me some time to give them a gift, and he agreed. You know, I just love happy endings. They always made me smile, so I wanted to give them one. Now I had installed a big screen and hired a projector because I planned to play a slideshow for them. The slideshow started with a picture of Clara as a baby, and then one of John as a child. That caused the crowd to smile and go, "Oh." Next were videos of Clara and John in cute moments, looking at each other smiling and laughing. It was indeed a beautiful moment. Then, a video started playing. It was of me smiling into the camera. I can't wait to see her face when we go there. It's going to be priceless. I know that things have been going roughly, and that work has been hectic, but I still love you, and I will always love you. I spoke into the camera before asking someone in front of me if they were ready. The next slide was a video of me in the gym with Kenzie looking around for Clara. Then it showed the gym receptionist informing us that Clara wasn't a member of the gym. Then I turned the camera to myself and spoke. Did I forget the name of the gym? I was still asking myself questions when the voice of Clara's sister was heard, telling me that she had gotten her sister on the phone, so I looked into the camera, smiled, and said, "Let's go." Now, as you can imagine, the bride looks very uncomfortable in her seat while the groom is shooting me death glares, but I just smile back and turn my head back to the video. Now we had arrived at the hotel and we saw the receptionist talking to me. Then we slowly made our way up the hotel stairs. We arrived at the door and the saxophone can be heard in the background. As I was about to knock on the door, John stood up and demanded that the slideshow be stopped, but to everyone's surprise, my father told him to keep quiet and asked me to continue. Now, when I tell you that I had the biggest smile on my face, I continued with the slideshow and showed how I discovered about Clara and John. The entire room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the newlywed and shook their heads. My fellow Redditors, I wasn't done yet. You see, I recorded our entire conversation from that day and it was shown. The next slideshow was about Clara. She was seen with an older man and they were being intimate with each other. I paused at the moment and took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, how are we doing? How are we enjoying the wedding so far? Good? Okay. Now, some of you may know me as the evil ex-husband who cheated on his beautiful wife, and many of you hated me without even knowing me. I was even threatened by my own father because of her. I always wondered why, but guess what? Now I know. After I said this, I played the video, and guess what? The older man in the video was my father. Yes, my biological father. I found out about them after I made peace with Clara and John. But let's go back to the wedding. The moment my father's face appeared on the screen, I think I heard someone scream, but at that moment I didn't even care to turn back. I was too invested in how good the video had come out. The next slide was a picture, or rather more pictures of Clara and my father while an audio recording was playing. It was Clara on the phone with her friend, and she was saying how she had gotten pregnant again for my dad. She further revealed that my father was the biological father of our daughter, and that she was just going to do it all over again with John and tell him that he's the father. The final clip had me in it. It was the night Clara and I kissed. Well, we may have done more than that, and every second was recorded, but before it ended, a clip of John hitting on Clara's younger sister appeared. He said that he was only getting married to her so that he could take out a life insurance on her. He further stated that after he was done with her, Clara, he would come for her, her sister. After the clip ended, a little message popped up, "Happy married life to John and Clara. I hope you find what you've been searching for in each other." Psy, I hope you like this wedding gift of mine. After the screen went black, I bid everyone farewell and left the hall. I changed my phone number, took my kids, and left.
I didn't.
Remember, I said I couldn't understand how people could sleep peacefully after causing mayhem. I still can't because I've been sleeping like a baby since that day. I still have my kids with me, and I'm currently with Kenzie, Clara's sister. We're not together. Yet who knows? Something might happen later. That's all. I hope my story was able to brighten your day.